Hello, I'm Jan Ravinsky and you're watching Break the Fake. They make them, we break them, and tell you everything you need to know. Onwards to the next episode of the Kremlin Disinformation Factory, a place which makes a 1 hour-long skibbity toilet lore video look like a documentary by comparison. Anyway, today we have another rather revealing fantasy on display. America and Russia cooperating to prevent Ukraine from getting any weapons drops during the ceasefire.
Если Соединенные Штаты реально заинтересованы в прекращении боевых действий, важнейшим фактором номер один является даже не прекращение огня как такового, а прекращение поставок оружия Украине. Возникает вопрос, как контролировать. Соответственно, должны быть созданы российско-американские инспекционные группы, которые должны присутствовать на каждом аэродроме, куда доставляется и дальше транспортируется на Украину оружие, дипломатический иммунитет, средства спутниковой связи. Вот, если американские партнеры так хотят мира, давайте начинать с этого.
So let me get this straight. The Russians want their spies, inspectors, traveling far and wide, visiting every military installation where arms for Ukraine were being delivered. That, for example, would imply those guys blundering about, diplomatic immunity in hand, across army bases and airfields in Poland. And in no way will they relay other confidential info to Moscow that they just happened to come across while inspecting those weapons. No siree. Also, the very idea of blocking arms supplies to Ukraine is, shall we say it, a bit hypocritical. Russia won't be covered by any such embargoes, one can assume, so the whole deal is effectively, lol, we can rearm and you can't, good luck suckers. In no way will Russia ever think of attacking Ukraine again after the Kremlin's troops get some R&R, because it has never been done before, I swear. That whole business in 2014 in Crimea and then in 2022 across all of Ukraine, never heard of it. The question is, will the United States fall into this trap? Republican Senator Lindsey Graham warned in an interview yesterday that, and I quote, "If Putin is playing Trump, he will regret it." End of quote, adding that Putin was the problem here, and a predator toward Ukraine and the region at large. However, what we still don't know is whether this viewpoint will prevail. From what we can tell, Russia not only wants territories, but also to block Ukraine from rebuilding its army and bar its path to NATO and the European Union. Also, Putin apparently wants to address the root causes of the problem, by which he means the so-called NATO expansion. Bro, the root cause of the problem, again, is you. Pro tip, delete your dictatorship, leave Ukraine alone, set Russia free, problem solved. One has to watch the talks closely to see what emerges afterwards, hopefully not another Budapest memorandum kind of dud. But also, if I was Putin, I would watch something else, namely, the skies. Because even if you deny Ukraine American weapons, you might one day wake up to something like this.
Обозначенную подсветкой зеленого цвета. Мы прибываем на станцию Tuapse.
We are arriving at...
Yeah, enjoy the fine sightseeing in Russia. Looks almost like that not-so-great Vin Diesel movie Babylon AD, specifically this scene where a Russian train casually travels across a crater left by a nuclear blast. Reality replaces fiction this time, courtesy of a Ukrainian missile strike. The missile, the new version of Neptune, was made domestically. 1,000 kilometers of flight later, and the Tuapse oil refinery is barbecue haven. It is ironic, then, that Moscow might be placing more hope in trying to bamboozle Americans than to beat Ukrainians in combat. Let's keep the pressure up so that Moscow takes the L on both fronts in the end. Comrade Tsar Vladimir Putin seems to be slowly preparing his imperial subjects for the possibility of peace talks with Ukraine. How can we tell? Well, simple. The Kremlin's propaganda machine is shifting gears from outright denial to its favorite pastime, making up outrageous stories about other countries. We're back to hearing fairy tales about millions of Western mercenaries, primarily Poles for some reason, allegedly fighting in Ukraine instead of those helpless, naive Ukrainians. According to this latest delusion, Ukrainians are nothing more than confused puppets manipulated by the rotten and criminal West. Because, of course, it's never Russia's fault. Just ask anyone from the glorious history books of the Soviet Union. And here comes another heart-wrenching saga from the newly liberated Kursk region. Apparently, there were barely any Ukrainian soldiers there at all. Instead, the area was allegedly swarming with Polish mercenaries who, according to Russian propagandists, spent their time committing atrocities, including attacking a 73-year-old woman. But don't worry, she heroically escaped, as all such Kremlin fables must have a dramatic twist.
Там же разные люди были. Там и насильники были, и зэки были, и украинцев там мало. Наемники были, поляки, там очень жестокие люди, очень жестокие эти люди. Ну, в этом изнасиловала девочку одну, и тут женщина еще была, тоже ее Мартыновки. Изнасиловали, хотели убить, но она вырвалась, и женщина эта, ей 73 года.
One might wonder why these terrifying Polish super soldiers, supposedly more powerful than an entire Russian battalion, never seem to leave behind any credible evidence. Maybe they are space marines if they teleported away. But let's not be ridiculous here. Asking for proof in Russia is practically an act of treason in itself. So sit back, comrades, and enjoy the latest episode of Reality According to the Kremlin TV, where facts are for the weak and fairy tales keep the empire from collapsing. Viktor Orban has officially unlocked the next level of historical revisionism. Forget about Hungary's 45 years under Soviet occupation. Erase from memory the 1956 revolution against Russian oppression. Instead, Hungarians must be reminded that the true enemy has always come from the West. Once it was the Habsburg dynasty ruling from Vienna, and now it's the European Union with its villainous headquarters in Brussels. According to Orban, Brussels is just the new Vienna, an imperial overlord bent on controlling Hungary as if it were still some obedient province of the empire. But fear not, dear comrades, the fearless leader has a solution. Stop bending over for the EU and instead turn inwards. Because obviously, self-isolation has always worked wonders for economically struggling nations in particular.
Brüsszel visszaél a hatalmával, ahogy Bécs tette annak idején. Éppen úgy akarnak uralkodni rajtunk, mint régen a bécsi udvar helytartói tették. Az orvosság, barátaim, nem az, hogy hátat fordítunk az Európai Uniónak, éppen ellenkezőleg nem kifelé, hanem befelé kell mennünk. Elfoglaljuk és megváltoztatjuk. Brüsszelben is fordul majd egyet a történelem. Nem fér a bőrébe, kihúzzuk majd belőle. Özetett labancaikat pedig postafordultával visszaküldjük, hadd boldogítsák egymást az Európai Parlament.
And if Brussels dares to cross the line, Orban has a plan. He will put them in their place and send their paid mercenaries, otherwise known as elected officials, back to where they came from, the European Parliament. A fate worse than exile, no doubt. So while the rest of Europe worries about real issues like security, energy, and war on its borders, Hungary's strongman is busy waging an imaginary battle against the bureaucrats of Brussels. Because of course nothing screams sovereignty like ranting on about EU oppression while cashing in those sweet, sweet European subsidies. And with this, we conclude this edition of Break the Fake. Please stay with us here on TVP World for more latest news and updates.